Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Model Kit Review. In today's fun model kit review, we'll be taking a look at the Hasegawa Nakajima Ki 43-1 Hayabusa, or Oscar, in 1/48 scale. This is Hasegawa kit number JT80. In this review, I'll be giving a brief history of the Ki 43. We'll also take a look at what comes in the box. And we'll talk about the parts count and the difficulty of this build and which modelers this kit would be appropriate for. We'll go through the kit instructions and I'll talk about any problem areas to watch out for with these. We'll also be looking at the built-up kit. We'll talk about the clarity and fit of the clear parts as well as the fit of the major parts on the airframe. We'll also talk about the smaller detail parts in the kit that comprise the interior and the landing gear and other smaller bits. We'll take a look at the surface detailing on the exterior of the kit. We'll look at the color and marking guides and the marking options that are included with this kit, and I'll give my conclusions at the end. Looking at the history of the Ki 43, the Ki 43 was formally adopted by the Imperial Japanese Army in May of 1941 as the Type 1 fighter. It was a replacement for the earlier Nakajima Ki-27. While the top speed of the new type exceeded that of the Ki-27 by 30 km per hour, there was a significant drop in maneuverability compared with the earlier fixed landing gear fighter. Most of the Ki-43 Model 1 aircraft were sent to Burma, where they made a significant contribution to the swift advances of the Imperial Japanese Army campaign there. With a new HA-115 engine and refined airframe, the upgraded Model 2 went on to become the Ki-43 Oscar, most familiar to early war Allied aviators, proving more than a match for their outdated Buffaloes, Hurricanes, and P-40s. However, later Allied types such as the Spitfire and P-38 turned the tables on the Ki-43 from early 1943 on. Despite this turn of events, the Imperial Japanese Army continued to rely on the Ki-43 as its main fighter type right up until the end of the war, more than anything because of the type's efficiency and relatively simple maintenance requirements. Maximum speed of the Ki-43 was 495 km per hour at 4,000 meters. Armament in the early Model 1 consisted of two 7.7mm MG machine guns, and on later Model 1 aircraft it consisted of two 12.7mm MG machine guns. Looking at what comes in the box, there are 8 sprues of plastic parts. There's also a sprue of clear parts and a sprue of the polycaps for the propeller and the tail wheel. There are 2 marking options included in this kit as well, and we'll take a look at those in a little bit. Looking at the instructions, step 1 has us assembling the cockpit floor and the control panel and the seat and rudder. The overall interior color is simply listed as Cockpit Color Nakajima. I would imagine that this is some form of interior green, but you may want to do a little bit of research here. There are decals included for the instrument panel. This is the best picture I could get of the control panel, and even though the clear parts are relatively clear, you're not going to be able to see much of the interior once the airframe is built up around it. In step 2, we're putting the sidewalls into the fuselage halves and installing the polycap in the tail section, and then joining the fuselage halves around those parts. I didn't have any issues with these steps, and you can see in these photographs there is a little bit of sidewall detail visible through the cockpit canopy. In step 3, we're starting the wing assembly, joining the lower wing to the 2 upper wings. If you plan on using the external fuel tanks later in the build, you want to drill out the holes for those in this step. In step 4, we're continuing on with the wing assembly. We're also installing the interior into the fuselage and mounting the wings to the fuselage and the tail planes as well. The only fit issue I had in this step was that the join line for the wingtips went right through the ailerons. There should not be a seam there, so this really should be filled in and smoothed out nicely if you want that to look accurate. Moving on, step 5 covers the engine assembly and then mounting that to the airframe and mounting the exhaust and the engine cowl and the oil cooler to that as well. I had no issues with this step. I think the level of detail here is great, and what can be seen looks really good on the finished kit. In step 6, we're just building the main landing gear. I would recommend letting the main gear legs dry in the underside of the wing prior to gluing the wheels on. That way you can get the flat spot on the wheels in the correct position when you glue those on. The detail on the main gear itself looks very nice. In step 7, we're gluing the main landing gear and the underwing fuel tanks and the butterfly flaps to the aircraft. The butterfly flaps on this aircraft were designed to be installed in the lowered position, and they don't have an option for installing them in the closed position, which I really would have preferred. Though I initially installed the butterfly flaps in the extended position when I initially built this kit, I subsequently went back and just removed them. In step 8, we're assembling and installing the propeller and the cockpit canopy and several antennas. This step went very easily. I had no issues with any of the parts in this step. Looking at the painting and marking guide, there are 2 marking options that are included with this kit. The first marking option is for a 64th Flight Regiment Ki-43 in the spring of 1942 in Burma. And the second marking option is for a 1st Flight Regiment Ki-43 in October of 1942. The color scheme for both marking options is the Imperial Japanese Army green over natural metal undersurfaces. I originally finished this kit with marking option number 1. The decals performed well, and it really looked nice on the shelf. I really liked the finished kit when I originally built this. Several years after I initially built this kit, I got some Champ setting solution and I applied it to the decals, and they instantly wrinkled horribly. What I should have done was left them alone and let them dry overnight, and they would have settled into the panel lines beautifully. Instead, I kind of freaked out and I tried to push them down and I tried to get rid of the wrinkles, and in doing so I ripped the decals. And so I had to remove all the decals from the aircraft at that point, and I decided to piece together some markings for a Ki-43 that I had seen in a color profile. So I used some decals that I had in the decal dungeon. I painted the overall airframe in silver, and then on the upper surfaces I went back and I hand painted the models. The way that I did that was I used very, very thin paint. I slowly filled in the center of each model, and it left a nice, somewhat soft edge around the edges of the model. I tried to duplicate the way the models would have appeared if these had been hand painted in the field. This process took me quite a bit of time. I like the way it turned out. It really looks cool on the shelf. It has some nice shelf impact. I'm happy with these results, and you can certainly let me know what you think in the comment section below. In conclusion, well, when I built this kit, it was the nicest model kit I had built to date. Everything on it fit so well. The surface detailing on the exterior of the kit is beautiful. The panel lines are consistent, they're petite, and they look great under a coat of paint. The interior on this kit is very nice. I would suggest adding some seat belts to the pilot seat. Other than that, the interior is perfectly fine out of the box. I really only have 2 gripes with this kit. The first is the fit of the wingtips. I was able to get a good fit on the upper side of the wing. The lower side doesn't fit quite as well. And as I said before, I don't like that the join line goes right through the ailerons on the kit. Also, I would like to have had the option of closing the butterfly flaps instead of having to pose them open. These 2 are really minor gripes, and this is just a gem of a kit. I had no issues with the kit decals when I put them on, and the only reason I went with a different color scheme than what comes in the box is because of a mistake that I made. The parts count on this kit is relatively low, and it gives a really nice end result without a lot of difficulty during construction. I really like the box art on this kit, and it's amazing to me that although this kit was introduced in the 90s, it still remains the most accurate and best model kit of the Ki-43 in 1/48 scale. I can recommend this kit to any modeler who has 1 or 2 kits under their belt. It makes a great first serious model kit. Well, I'd love to know what you guys think. If any of you have built Hasegawa's Ki-43, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, model on.